one.
Hi yogis, welcome to this yoga class which is focusing on forward bendings. Forward bendings can be considered difficult postures. They rely on three major muscle groups to take the upper body forward over the lower body. Here's Mr. Bones. Mr. Bones is showing us up close the shape of the spine. His neck spine dives into the body in this normal curve. His upper spine curves out of the body, and his lumbar spine curves into the body. So the spine itself has a normal curvature in at the neck, out at the upper back, in at the lower back. If we look at the structure of the spine, we can see that between each of the vertebrae are discs. It's the discs that are fed by forward bendings. The discs themselves do not receive direct infusions. They no longer take liquids into themselves in our adult years. So they rely on the cells around them to imbibe. And as Dory very cleverly pointed out, to imbibe, to drink, to take in. So when the cells around the discs are stimulated, the discs receive that fluid and they become softer, spongier, less brittle, more likely to accept the shocks of walking as the vertebrae are pressed together. So forward bendings can actually make the spine much more flexible and healthier. The three major muscle groups that are called for by forward bendings are the muscles of the buttocks region, the muscles at the back of the thigh bones called the hamstrings, the muscles at the back of the calves, the gastrocs, or gastrocnemius muscles, and then where the leg bones attach to the pelvis. This joint, the hip joint, must also be willing to soften and open in order to take the upper body forward over the lower body. So Mr. Bones, setting him aside now, where he can observe what we're doing, we're going to take ourselves into forward bendings to create length and space in the spine. And keep in mind, during the course of daily life, I'm going to turn sideways to you and show you a kind of forward bending that's not very healthy for the discs. Sitting sideways to you as I am, I'm just sitting on my heels. I'm not focusing on the yoga pose particularly, but as you watch the upper back, you can see that I'm exaggerating that rounding of the upper back as it spreads further out from the body, and it causes the chest to collapse into the body. If I mimic the shape of my body on a keyboard, and keep in mind that I'm staring at a monitor, you see how I'm carrying the head forward, how the upper back is rounded, how the chest is collapsed, and my mind, when I'm busy on my keyboard, is not in the body. My mind, when I'm busy on the keyboard, is on the project that's on the monitor. And in my conversation with that project, I'm hypertasking. Rather than hypertasking, let's adopt a new word coined by Judith Lanson-Hassiter, the woman who created a wonderful series of books, Relax and Renew. And Judith Lanson-Hassiter has coined the term unitasking. Let's keep our mind on the immediate focus of the body and the mind together. It's yoga. When we're unitasking, we're in the body we're focusing and accepting what the body is prepared to give. We're integrating our feelings about the body as well as our experience in the body at that moment, and integrating, bringing together the feelings that we have about what we're doing and about ourselves, as well as the physical phenomena that we're experiencing. Forward bendings. Let's begin by using our wall and standing. When we stand, we're taking the pelvis to the wall. So I'm actually leaning against the wall with the buttocks muscles and the sacrum at the wall. My knees are slightly bent. My feet are separated, hip distance apart, and I'm stretching the arms up in order to stretch the spine and the rib cage up. I'm turning the palms forward and continuing to reach up through the rib cage and the spine, and now reaching forward, I'm folding forward over the feet. I take the long finger and index finger between the big and second toe and complete the circle with the thumb. Now I'm pulling with the arms. And as I pull, I'm walking the sits bones up the wall. I'm sliding them up the wall, moving them up the wall as best I can. As I pull with the arms, the chest is moving forward and lifting away from the floor. The consequences of those actions draw the upper spine into the body and lengthen the spine away from the wall. I'm choosing to look down so that I don't thrust the chin forward and shorten the back neck. Rather than that, the back neck and sides of the neck are lengthening, the arms are pulling, the sits bones are moving up the wall, and then I take the right hand to the right thigh, the left hand to the left thigh, and pressing the thighs, I roll the spine up the wall and come upright. A second posture using the wall and folding forward is a posture called pada, hands, hastasana, feet. Lifting the heels, bending the knees, I slide the palms under the feet. I want to get the big toe mound on the thumb mound. And so now I'm pulling with the arms and sliding, walking sits bones up the wall, pulling with the arms to stretch the chest forward, to draw the upper spine in, to lengthen the sides of the neck. I'm also getting a good pull on the wrists. So if you have wrist issues, this pose also gives you a stretch. Then I release the hands, take the hands back to the wall, give a little push off the wall, and come forward. My fingertips are on the floor. But yogis, you can see there are 4 full blocks, a belt, a bolster, a chair, and a blanket, and I could use any of those props if I needed them to place my hands. Meaning, if I'm bending my knees to get my fingertips to the floor, then I need to support the hands on some further support. For example, I could take a foam block, or 2, or 3, or however many, or I could use my chair seat. So that I can get the benefits now of stretching the hamstrings muscles, stretching the calves muscles, and stretching the spine forward. This way of working to modify the standing forward bending posture gives you the experience of the spine lengthening and the vertebra between the spine imbibing the fluids necessary to keep them flexible. To come up, take your hands to the waist. Inhale, firm the legs, and lift trunk and up you rise. So you can do the forward bendings, either taking the pelvis to the wall and stretching forward as we showed, or you can press your body away from the wall and do the standing forward bending separate from the wall. Either way is fine. What you're doing is this posture, Uttanasana or Padahastasana, done in a variety of means according to your capacity. Setting the foam blocks aside now for the moment, I want to show Sukhasana, or seated cross-legged posture. It might be the case that you can fold your blanket and that would give you sufficient support, but if your hip sockets are tight, if the hamstrings or calf muscles are tight, if the groins are tight, you might want to make a sandwich with your blanket of a foam block or two to give yourself a little bit more support. So as you learn about your body, you also learn about the appropriate support for you. I'm taking a folded blanket and choosing to give it another little fold and sitting at the front edge of the foam blanket, of the folded blanket, I cross the shins. And I paused there for a moment because I was remembering, oh, it's May 17th. That's an uneven number. So that's the day I take the left leg in. If we were doing this tomorrow and it was May 18th, an even number, I'd take the right leg in. This way I move back and forth between the crosses of the legs so that there's more opportunity for both hips, both legs to receive the posture. Taking the hands to the flesh of the buttock, I draw it back and releasing now the thighs toward the floor. They're turning from inside to outside. Depending on the tension or stiffness in the hips, if you find at this moment of sitting that your knees are higher than your waist, you really need to take another foam block or two, or whatever facsimile you're using for foam blocks if you've not managed to get foam blocks into your props kit. Crossing the shins in this way, I take my thumbs to the crease, the groins, between the legs and the pelvis. And my hand is pressing down in this fashion as I lift the chest and start to move the upper spine into the body and bring the chest up and forward. Each time I go up and forward, I pause, feel for the spine because I cannot see it. Is the upper spine popping out of the body like this? Or have you managed to lift the chest and draw the upper spine into the body? Once you come so far forward that you feel the need to put the brakes on, you can take your fingertips forward and that will give you a little more control of this posture. This posture is working on two of the main muscle groups that we need to become flexible, supple, and responsive. Those muscle groups, the hip sockets, the buttocks muscles, and the flexors for a third group in the groins. Change the cross of the legs, draw the feet in toward you and away from each other, and let the thighs drop away. You might find as you change the cross of the legs from side to side that one side feels a little freer. This is good. That will teach the less flexible side to release. Again, this time to get the sits bones out behind me, I'm using this method. Fingertips to the floor, lift the pelvis, zoom the sits bones out behind, and begin now. Thumbs in the groins, chest up and forward we go to whatever degree. Now, if you find that the going forward isn't as dramatic or satisfying as you prefer, just remember, simply by lifting the vertebra off the disc below, You are making the discs healthier, more flexible, more supple. So even if it seems, oh, I'm not really getting anywhere, I can't go forward, that's okay. You've got the spine lifted, you've got the abdomen scooped in toward the spine, you've got the bottom of the breastbone directly to the navel. You're doing everything you can to create that space and fluidity in the spine. Stretch the legs out to release them. Take your blanket to the side, and let's look at our standing forward bend, Prasaryta Padottanasana. Some call it Prasarita Padottanasana when we use the English synonym inflection. So that pose is again a standing forward bend. We take ourselves upward, and you might want to start with your chair. When I place the chair, I've got it in the center of the long side of my mat. And when I step the heels to the edge of the mat, I've got the heel flush with the edge of the mat so that I can align the feet accurately. I've sent the heel away and the toes come in toward the body. This side of the foot, the little toe side, is glued to the floor and it's lengthened. From heel to little toe, there's a lengthening forward. When you stand up and create that lengthening forward of the little toes, it will turn the thighs in even more. Then, with hands on the groins, we lift the spine. We draw the abdomen in. We've got the uprightness of the chest, the uprightness of the spine, and now we're folding over the groins and taking the hands to the chair. You might find that your Prasarita Padottanasana is here. That's okay. Keep the back of the head in line with the spine. Take the abdomen in and lengthen the spine from the mid-back upwards and from the lumbar spine downwards. Then, see, can you take the hands to the chair, the forearms to the chair? This is a different aspect because now the upper body is starting to come parallel to the floor. The spine is lengthening. The tailbone is lengthening away from the chair, abdomen in, back neck long. If this is your Prasarita Padottanasana, that's just fine. This is stage 1 of the posture. Practice this so the legs are firm, they can support your weight. Then, if you're willing to take the next step, you can chase the chair away. Here I'm getting the length of the spine again. I'm getting the length of the side ribs again. And from here, when the day comes that the hands come to the bottom of the chair, then you're ready to work on the next stage. You'll keep the chest stretching forward while the hands move back. This stage now brings the forearms parallel, the upper arms parallel, the chest stretching forward, the abdomen into the body, and the spine long. If we take the next stage toward the final expression of the pose, the hands move back. The chest continues to move forward, and now you see that the crown of the head is moving toward the floor. If your pose is in this stage, it's beneficial to take one of your foam chip blocks, or 2 or 3. Let me see if I can manage that. There we go. And place it like this, so that as the hands move back, you get the experience of the crown of the head pressing onto something. It could be 2 foam blocks or 6 foam blocks or the chair seat, doesn't matter. But press down with the head and lift the spine up. Coming out, chest forward, fingers forward. You can bend the knees and hop the feet together and come up and set your foam blocks to the side. Prasarita Padottanasana is a pose that you've done many times. These seated and standing forward bends have a particular effect on the nervous system. They they call for the parasympathetic nervous system to calm the body. This is the rest and digest system of the body. It brings a sense of ease, of well-being, of calmness to our general sense of ourself. The next postures now are seated forward bends. And I want to remind you of one little experiment we did several videos ago. And we used the blanket. And I'm not going to belabor this, but I do want you to understand that in seated forward bendings, we use the phrase, pull the blanket out from under you. I've got it on the slippery cork floor. If you have carpets in your home, you might want to bring your blanket onto a bathroom floor, a kitchen floor, a smooth floor, so that you get the same effect. Here's what we're doing. I've got my back turned to you, and I've got the legs stretching forward. I'm sitting at the front edge of the blanket. This action is key in that it addresses the position of the pelvis in seated forward bendings. I'm holding the blanket, and I'm pulling the blanket up. And as I pull it up, you can see my legs are walking forward, and the sits bones have moved out behind me. This is the optimal position for the pelvis in seated forward bendings. If you've got someone at home that you're practicing with, you could take turns with each other and pull the blanket out from under. If the blanket is pulled up and back, do it a few times and get the feeling of how the pelvis moves out and the upper body moves forward. It's kind of fun too. If there's kids at home, they'll love doing that. In that action of the pelvis moving out behind us, we're going to take that into a posture called Upavishta Konasana. As well, we visited that posture in earlier videos, but this one has a particular focus for Upavishta Konasana. I'm sitting at the edge of my blanket, and I'm just taking that moment to move the sits bones out behind me. I press my hands down and I move the pelvis back. And as I move the pelvis back, the legs stretch away from each other. You can do that several times. You can pull the blanket out behind you. You can move the pelvis back. You can use your hands on the buttocks flesh. In fact, why don't you do all three of those things and see which one really works best for you? Is it hands to the buttocks flesh back? Is it pull the blanket back? Is it press down with the hands and move the pelvis back? Is it all of the above? The legs stretch evenly away through the inner thighs, inner calves, inner heels. Even the foot stretches away. The big toe mound leads the way, but the action starts here at the inner groins. We're getting the hamstrings lengthening, especially the inner hamstrings and the inner calf muscles, gastrocs. Inner hamstring, inner gastroc goes away. Inner heel goes away. Big toe mound goes away. And so then our first challenge is, can we sit upright with the straight legs pressing down into the floor and reaching out through the inner thigh. I'm taking my hands back. My fingers are pointed away from the back body and the elbows are bent. And this is giving me the opportunity to lift the spine. Each little vertebra lifting off the disc below. The discs busily imbibing the fluids from the surrounding cells. Thighs are pressing down, calves are reaching out to heels, big toe mounds are reaching away, legs active, spine lifted. Now to come forward, I could do one of several things. One thing I could do is take my belt and fold it into the groins. Here it is, below the abdomen, into the groins, back, and pressing the groins down. All the other actions continue. Inner thighs lengthen, thighs press down, sits bones press down, chest up and forward, up and forward. Now, we're a culture that likes outcomes. We like to get to the finish line. We like to think there's an end to something and by golly, we're getting there. But in yoga, there's no end. There's no, oh, I finally got it. There's always that promise. There's more. You can get more out of this. So as I come up and forward, I've got my hands in front of me now, giving me some control as I move the chest forward. My tendency is to press the sits bones down, the heels down, and to reach forward, and then to look forward. We could use any one of these or several of these prompts. For example, if the hips are tight, we could say, oh, I just want to rest the face, so let me get my chair and move my chair in front of me so that I have this kind of platform, and let me keep my phone blocks and my bolster close to hand so that when I stretch the legs wide and soften and release the groins, here's my chair. I can judge the distance of the chair from me such that the spine is long, but the head is rested. The chair might be the perfect solution. Or you might say, no, the chair is too far down for me. I have a long spine and I find I'm hunching my shoulders. Then the chair is not useful. Then we set it to the side and we might say, let's take the bolster and let's find the smooth end to the bolster and rest the brow and hold the bolster and know that by lifting the spine and activating the legs and freeing the pelvis, the hips, I'm still getting the benefits of a seated forward bend. Head is rested. You can stay in these seated forward postures 2 minutes or 3 minutes as you feel the body starting to uncoil away from the tensions and the gripping aspects into a soft, supple, integrated mind and body. To come up, simply lift the head, set the bolster to the side. Now, we're not really taking these forward bendings into twisting actions, except for this posture, Upadishta Konasana. Parshva and Paravrita. We unloaded those terms recently. Parshva is a turning toward, and Paravrita is turning away. When I turn toward the left leg, I'm using the hands to guide the spine around. And as I turn, the principle is inhale and lift the spine. Exhale and turn. Then I reach up with the right side body, right arm, right hand, and clasp the foot, if you can. Of course, if that doesn't come within your reach, you have a belt, and you can clasp the belt. And turn the trunk in line with the left leg. The right hip wants to lift a little, so I let it lift a little, and as I turn and clasp, I'm holding the outer edge of the foot, elbow is bent, and then once I'm here, balanced over the left leg, I press that right buttocks down, and I get a stretch through the buttocks muscles, which is very helpful for seated forward bendings. Second side, coming up. I have my belt at the ready, should I need it. I turn over the right leg, turning and turning so the center of the chest is coming toward the mid-thigh. The leg is doing exactly what it has been doing all along. Hamstring stretching, calf muscle stretching, inner leg stretching, both sides. As I turn, the left hip comes up a little, and I reach forward and up and clasp the outer foot and bend the elbow forward and reach forward. This again is a seated forward bending. From here, I press the left buttocks down, the left hamstrings down, and get a stretch through that left buttocks region. To come out of the posture, I simply come forward. Now, because you've been in the posture for some time, working on the forward bending, working on the parsha or turning to the side bending, you might find that with these props, you can take the body forward into a more restful position. I'm going to remove the chair. Chair is coming aside. My 4 foam blocks are in line in front of me. Belt is not necessary at the moment, and I'm placing the bolster on top of my 4 foam blocks and just arranging them so that when I explore, coming forward with the pelvis a little to stretch the legs a little wider, they probably will because you've been here for a bit. I reach the legs wider, reach the pelvis out behind, lift the trunk up and over the bolster, and folding the arms, rest the head. Again, the spine is lifting. The vertebrae are lifting off the discs below. There's a fluidity coming to the spine. This might be the place you stop. Or you might say, oh, but I think I can do a little more, in which case, maybe release a layer of foam blocks, move your supports a little bit further forward, and then see, can you reach the head forward? I'm folding my forearms to rest the brow, back of the head resting wide. Here the chest is supported, the legs are doing their work, hamstrings lengthening and broadening, calves long, the inner edges of the feet reaching away to the big toe mound, chest resting. To come up, press down into your supports and lift the head. This forward bending, once you find exactly the right support for you, you can stay. You can stay, and the effects on the mind-body are soothing the parasympathetic nervous system. I'm taking these props to the side, and we're going to explore a pose called Virasana. But let's come out of Upavishta first. Hold the inner knees, lift up, and bring the legs together. In Virasana, I'm turning my back to you because I want you to see what could be useful to release the back of the knee joint. Again, this is not new. We've done some of this before. I'm pressing the blanket deep into the back of the knee joint. So I'm making sure that it's snuggled right in there. I'm holding the blanket edges and bringing the knees together and then slowly sitting back. See how the blanket is drawn forward, like this, so that the back of the knee joint is spread and it releases. There's no pressure under the kneecap, under the patella. But my sit bones are hovering off the floor. So I'm not quite in the posture yet. I take the foam blocks and we take them widthwise between the feet, like this. And as I draw the knees together and sit back on my foam blocks, the spine is vertical. This pose, Virasana, is a very beneficial pose for the knees, the shins. And so we're practicing it today in its first iteration. This is a modified Virasana, modified by the blanket, modified by the foam blocks, and any number of foam blocks. You can take whatever you need. This particular pose also frees the thigh muscles. These muscles, the quadriceps, also engage during seated forward bendings. So Virasana is getting us a little bit of the release that we need to take with us into the next pose. Trianga, Mukha Ekapada, Paschimottanasana, probably one of the longest names for the seated forward bendings. Trianga means 3 angles. Mukha Ekapada is the face looking toward the legs, and Paschimottanasana is the back body coming forward. So here we go. Trianga, coming up. I take my blanket out, I bring one foot forward, the other foot forward, and hands to the hips come up. In Trianga, The challenge comes when we have to balance the pelvis while the legs are doing two very different things. We're going to take the left leg now right back into Virasana. So I clasp the front ankle and slide that left shin beside me. You can see that I'm sitting inside that left foot, not on it. And then the right leg stretches forward. I've got my blanket at the ready, I've got my belt at the ready, and two more foam blocks. You can see that the pelvis is tilted at this point. I'm tilting to the right. I'm sinking onto the right buttocks. So I'm going to use my blanket. What thickness? To be discovered. I'm going to start this way and just take the corner of the blanket under the right sit bone. It's a very precise action. So you can see the corner of the blanket is coming in. I'm sitting right at the corner. There it is. And now I'm testing to see with my fingers on the pelvic crests, on the hip crests. Do they feel level to the floor? Yeah, they do. And so I know that the blanket is sufficient support, but I want to do one more thing. I'm using the left hand to broaden the right buttocks away, and now I've settled both sit bones. Right sit bone on the blanket, left sit bone on the floor. Right leg forward. Then I'll take my belt and place it around this right foot, should I need it, in order to take the forward bending aspect of this pose. I stretch the arms up, extend the spine, turn the palms forward, reach up and forward toward the foot. If you can hold the sides of the foot, fine, hold the sides of the foot. But if you're doing this to get that, then rather than doing that, hold the belt and pull, either with the fingers or the hands, lift the front body. From pubis to navel, from navel to collarbones, eyes at eye level, lifting each little vertebra off the disc below. I explore now. Can I come forward? Let's see. Elbows lift high and wide. Groins soften from inside to outside. Chest lifts up and forward. The front body is aligned with the space between the legs, between the inner right thigh, inner left thigh. My spine is coming forward. I look down, back of the head in line with the spine. And now I'm using the arms. I'm pulling the chest forward. Lifting the arms, I'm pulling the chest forward, the eyes looking down to relax the muscles of the face. Trianga, Mukha Ekapada, is coming forward, one leg folded, one leg straight. To come up, inhale, reach the arms up. Take the front of the left ankle in your left hand and bring that foot directly forward so that you don't tweak the knee. Take the blanket out. We don't know what the second side will require, so we'll set the blanket aside. We'll fold the right knee, we'll catch the front of the ankle, we'll slip this foot back beside us and carefully note that the foot is coming straight back. It's not folding around the hip. The knee is coming directly forward. Oh, I need my blanket. I can feel I'm sinking onto the left buttocks. Let me take the corner of the blanket, the corner, under the left sit bone. Just the sit bone. Like that. And then let me test to see. Oh, I'm still sinking onto that left buttock, even though the blanket is the same height I used under the right hip. That's okay. The body needs a little more support on this side. If you find that's true for you, just take another fold of the blanket and see if that secondary fold will give you balance. Left side, right side. You see, we're not as symmetrical as we might think. Often there are significant differences from side to side, and the props are there to levelize the pelvis. Again, I have my belt, and it's placed around the foot, and I've got the knees side by side. I've got the right knee coming directly forward. Everything is in its place for the next step. Up go the arms, up goes the side ribs, up goes the spine and the front body, up, 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 and forward to clasp the sides of the foot or to clasp the belt. Whichever you do, be sure to bend the elbows and lift the elbows. This gives us the work of the sides of the body to come forward. With the elbows up high and wide, I walk my hands toward the foot along the belt, looking down. I'm stretching the abdomen forward, the chest forward, the eyes look down. Triangle, Mukha Ekapada Paschimottanasana is a complex pose. And yet, Mr. Iyengar placed it at the level 1. He was teaching that all of the actions that are required in this pose are prepared in the postures that come before this pose. In some ways, you could think of it as a target pose for your sequence. It's the one that you build toward and then you linger with to explore, are there any obstacles in the body in this pose? Is it the hips? Is it the buttocks muscles? Is it the hamstrings? Is it the groins? What might I spend a little more time with in the initial postures in order to get more freedom in Trianga? To come out, as usual, hand to the front ankle, foot slipping forward, coming off the supports, blanket goes to the side. Dandasana. Dandasana is the queen of all the seated postures, and usually a sequence would start with Dandasana. I'm taking Dandasana a little bit of a step further now, in joining the feet, in joining the legs, in stretching the hamstrings forward, the calves forward, the Achilles forward. My fingertips beside the hips, I'm lifting the hips and stretching the tailbone and the sits bones rather out behind me. I've got the belt in hand and I've got my props as well. I want to take Dandasana to Paschimottanasana, bringing the upper body forward. And I'd like some support here on the shins for the brow. So you've got all kinds of support. You can calculate what you need. Feel free to add or subtract, but here's what the pose could look like. Sits bones out behind, hamstrings long, calf muscles long, feet reaching away. Up goes the upper body. Up, up, up. You'll feel even more upward movement now at this stage of the sequence. Look up, fold forward, hold the feet, elbows up and wide, pull with the hands, turn the head, rest the brow. Just have to move my foam blocks a little bit further forward and pull, pull and pull and pull with the arms. Stretch the chest forward more and more, and then explore. If you take too little support, if I did that and I did this, yes, I've got my face on my legs, but look at the shape of the back. Here, the discs are being thrust back or out of the space between the vertebrae if I allow the back to do this. Each little disc is being thrust back. It's being expelled. But if we do this, the disc is circular and in its place, and it's imbibing the fluids it needs as we rest into the pose. So, set ambition aside and instead feed the discs in a wholesome way that completes the fluidity, the flow of the spine. Paschimottanasana takes us forward in Dandasana, In previous postures, in previous sequences, we've worked on Salamba Sarvangasana, and I'd like to end with that. So we'll set up our 4 foam blocks, as we've learned to do, in a little rectangle of support at the end of our mat. We won't use our bolster, it can go aside. Our 4 foam blocks are here, and we take our blanket, or blankets plural, and take them around over the foam blocks, flush with the edge of the foam blocks. Tail of the mat comes in, and it's about a thumb length distance from the edge. The whole thing gets pulled to the wall, and we're not going further than bent knees, spine lifting. And today, we're not going to use the belt either. We think we might be able to get the hands on the back like this, and then pull the elbows in like that without the belt. But if you know that your elbows are going to do this, then please make a shoulder width loop of your belt. You know how to do that, and use your belt. Today, I'm not going to use the belt, but you might. You come into the posture, you'll sit sideways into this very, very small space, and take the legs up the wall. See how the forearm supports the body, the legs go up the wall, the shoulders in line with the mat. I'll pull my shirt down so you can see I'm looking for this alignment. Shoulders, edge of the mat. It tells me that I'm not going to propel myself off the supports when I go into shoulder balance. I'm in the center or close to the center of the pad. Feet to the wall. Knees bend. Feet press the wall. And now I lift the pelvis up and take the hands onto the back. And I'm just going to stay here. I'm lifting the tailbone up, I'm pressing the feet to the wall, I'm pressing the top shelf of the shoulders down, buttocks lengthen. The hands eventually work this way. See how they moved from here to this rib, to this rib, to this rib? And as I catch the ribs and lift the ribs further and further, I get more length of the spine. That's the job of the hands. Lift the skin of the back. Lift the back. Lengthen the vertebra. Stay. Breathe. Soften the gaze. Relax the throat. Relax the jaw. When your capacity is reached for holding this posture, release the hands. Lower the pelvis. And push with the feet so that the head, the neck, the shoulders come onto the floor, and again, we're in a cross-legged position. Again, releasing the groins, releasing the hips, spending a moment before we come out and take Shavasana. Often we'll cross the shins the other way around. You heard the comment at the beginning of this class to always be sure that you change the cross of the shins so the hip sockets get the same treatment throughout your years of practice. Coming onto the side, collect the head and come up and prepare for Shavasana. Now, thinking about Shavasana and thinking about the discs and the vertebrae and how best to bring that consciousness into our practice so that we are focusing on the body, and most particularly today, into the space between the vertebrae, into the discs. We could take our 4 foam blocks and set them up like this, and bring our blanket for the back of the skull. And when we're coming into the posture, we want to get the floating ribs onto the foam blocks, push the top of the buttock away, and now I'm digging the elbows into the mat to stretch the spine, vertebra by vertebra, along the foam blocks, pull the blanket in to the base of the neck, remove the glasses, and vigorously stretch the legs away, and then let them drop out. Let the elbows drop into the floor. See that the position of the skull is such that there is a slight tilting from brow to chin to chest. And if you sense that the legs could drift, and my legs drifted to the left, so I have to bring them back into alignment. Now relax completely. And focus your attention on the spine. As BKS Iyengar has reminded us, we can't see it, we have to feel it. You might sense that there's a little gap between your spine and the foam blocks. You might sense that the upper back may be lifting away from the foam blocks, or the lower back, or the mid back. Can you bring the spine from the floating rib area right the way along the foam blocks? Can you bring it evenly to the foam blocks? And then rest. Rest completely. And stay in Shavasana, maybe setting your timer for 10 minutes or 15 minutes, so that your whole body, mind, breath, and spirit can rest into the relaxation and the benefits of your practice, which takes us into a state of contentment, of santosha, and into the sense that we have surrendered to the imperatives of the body, the breath, and the mind. We have surrendered the preoccupations of our lives, the hypertasking, and given ourselves the opportunity to focus on our own well-being. When the time comes to come out, you bend the knees, you slide the hand under the skull, you come completely off the props, and from here, one hand down and then the other, you come to a seated posture, and this is the moment ripe for meditation, to simply sit. Lifted spine now, flexibility where there was tension, release where there was gripping, quiet in the body, calm in the mind. Spend a few moments here. And I am going to salute you, yogis, and salute Dory Miller, who's helping me, and you, with her selfless service. I bow to you. Namaste.